Welcome, everybody. I'm Selena Rezvani, and you're joining Women and Work Culture. This is a live stream all about the positive ways we can support and elevate women at work. It's such a thrill today to get to welcome a leader I have so much admiration for, and that's Jen Fisher, Chief Wellbeing Officer at Deloitte. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Selena. So good to be here with you.
Thank you. And so happy to have you and hear your really important perspective today. And welcome to you, community. Drop us a note and let us know where in the world you're logging in from today. Say hi and let us know. Cincinnati, Denver, Philadelphia suburbs so far. So keep it coming. And for all of you, if you have questions around our discussion today about well-being for Jen, let us know. We're going to try to get to at least a few of those questions today. So, Jen, I first met you a few years ago at Deloitte, where we got to work together on some pilot research around well-being. And I have to tell you, you made a huge impression on me,
Oh,
especially your leadership style. Yeah, I have to tell you, you're
thank
so
you.
real, you're so humble, and you're doing that while like pioneering a brand new, net new topic in the world, right? Well-being at work. So if there were ever a time to talk about well-being, it's today, it's right now, while we're all knee deep in it. And so I want to ask you, and so people can get to know your story a little bit. You had your own like catalytic moment, your, big M moment that drove, fired you up to get interested in well-being. Will you take us back there and tell us a little bit about how you got into this field?
Yeah, absolutely. And I probably have had a few moments, but the one that was really the catalyst for what I'm doing today is my own story of burnout. And so, about 6 years ago, I, woke up one morning and my eyes opened, but I was physically unable to get out of bed. And just kind of engage in life, engage in work, engage in anything that mattered to me. I was completely burnt out. And people always ask me, did you see it coming? What were the signs? Did I see it coming? Yeah, in hindsight, I saw it coming. Were there people that pointed it out to me and tried to gently tell me that something didn't seem right with me, that I didn't seem like myself, especially my husband, but nobody listens to their spouses, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
so but looking back, there were certainly signs, in terms of my mood, in terms of how I reacted versus responding, just in terms of how engaged I was or how present I was able to be with people. And as I worked through that myself, the conclusion that I came to as to why I didn't want to own my burnout or own that I was burning out was because burnout to me at the time meant failure. It meant that I couldn't be everything to everyone. I couldn't be the perfect employee, the perfect spouse, the perfect daughter, the perfect friend. All these labels that we give ourselves, that we hold to a standard of perfection. And so I was just spilling out, energy all over the place and, not taking care of myself. And so the realization was, I can't, beyond the fact that my body wouldn't let me, but the realization of self-care, to me, I had defined it all wrong. I had defined it as an hour in the gym a day and literally a few hours of sleep per night, and then work
Mm,
or do whatever else it was I was doing the rest of the time. And that absolutely did not work. It's not sustainable. And so I had to really redefine boundaries. I had to redefine self-care for myself and what that looked like. And in doing that, I became very passionate about it. And I became very passionate about wanting to help others not get to the point that I got to, and knowing that, we all have the opportunity to, create the boundaries in our life, to put ourselves first, because it's not selfish. When we put ourselves first and we take care of ourselves, we can truly show up for the things that matter in our life, and really help people in that journey themselves. And so, being at Deloitte at the time, I had the incredible opportunity to present the idea to a handful of leaders, and, put together a business case and ask them to give me a chance to see if it was something we could make work at Deloitte. And, fortunately had some great leaders, and they gave me the support. And like I said, that was about 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago. And, it's still going strong. And perhaps, now in the middle of a global pandemic, the realization of, our not just our physical health, but our mental health and well-being, is more important than ever, I think.
Wow. What, a way to take your lesson and turn it into a message, right? And like a
Yeah.
movement. I don't think it's too strong a word to say it's a movement. So I think a lot of us are taking notes about how to do that and make such a smart kind of business case proposal. And I would encourage any of you listening to do that, to ask yourself, is there a need and a really great business case you could make, maybe for that non-existent role that should exist, like Jen did. I think it's a really powerful prompt. I want to go back to something you said about kind of signals. You talked about your own burnout journey, and that there were some signals there. We all probably get some of those signals and flares that go up. I mean, why do you think it's just so easy to either push those aside, or maybe could you tell us what some of those signals were for you? I think we could probably see them in our own lives.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the primary reasons that we don't recognize, or, and it's not that I didn't recognize, it's just that I didn't want to own them. And I think part of that is because, you know, we as a society in large part have framed burnout as something that's a weakness. And, to me, burnout should not be the price for success, because that doesn't even make sense. You cannot sustainably perform, high performance, continue to be successful if you are burnt out and not taking care of yourself. It just won't work. It might work for a period of time. You might not recognize how you're showing up. I think the biggest thing for me in terms of recognizing it, is I had people pointing it out, and they were people that cared about me. And if you have people that care about you, that come to you and tell you that something's not right, that they're worried about you, and they're people that I mean, they're friends and family. They're not trying to, there's nothing divisive about that, right? It's genuine concern. Listen to them, and get real with yourself. And I didn't even want to engage in the conversation. I would just brush it off and tell them they didn't know what they were talking about. I was fine. But engage in that conversation and say, what do you mean? Tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what is different. But, I mentioned some others. I was short tempered. I was very reactive. I definitely had, problems kind of staying engaged and in the moment, and giving people the time and the energy that they needed, because my energy was just, spilling out all over the place. Right. And I mean, it was so nobody, including myself, was getting the best of me. And so I think, but I definitely think, kind of short temper, perhaps, some anxiety and things like that, show up. If you're having trouble sleeping, all of those can certainly be signs. But I think the most important is, if people care about you, if people who care about you say something and have the courage to say something to you, listen to them and dive into that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And it can be easy to push away and say you're being oversensitive, you're worrying too much, right? It's almost like the stuff you might say to your mom, I'm fine. And yet, like, you need to make yourself accessible to people, like someone who people can give that input to, right? Because I think we
Yeah.
all know some people who there's a clear message, I don't want to hear it, or I won't accept it. I want to kind of shift a little bit to talking about women specifically and working women. One of the things I see observing around me a lot that I certainly feel at times is this I'm not enough right now sentiment. I'm not enough of the worker I need to be right now. I'm not enough of the mom, the sister, the wife, the friend right now. It feels like I'm coming up short in a lot of those areas. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I wonder, like, what are you seeing as some of the challenges for working women right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the I'm not enough is certainly you know um, something that we've all experienced, and probably will continue to experience. I mean, even with my own story, I have moments of feeling like I'm not enough. And especially now when everybody, men and women, are being called on to play very different roles than they ever have before, right? And lots of them are going on at the exact same time in the exact same household, sitting on top of each other, right? There's no, I mean, I never talked about work life balance before. I talked about work life integration, and now work and life are just like literally on top of each other in the same room all the time, all day long.
Yes, yes.
And so we're all, and there's no playbook for what we're going through right now. And so what I would say to anyone, and maybe especially women, is, first of all, we talk so much about kindness and compassion and empathy for others. That starts with you. If you cannot be kind and compassionate to yourself, then you can't truly be kind and compassionate to others. So cut yourself a break. um, you know Focus, especially right now, on the things that you can control and the things that you can get done. And if the kitchen floor is dirty, let the kitchen floor be dirty.
Yeah, yeah.
And everything's going to be okay. And try to just remind yourself of that perspective, that and I think also, asking others. Sometimes we can't see those things in ourselves, but again, connecting with others, relying on others, asking them, like, either how are you doing it, or what are you struggling with? This is what, creating that network of women, of men, of whoever it is, and really truly, talking about it and having those open and honest conversations, because otherwise we're comparing ourselves to what we believe this perfect person should be, and that perfect person doesn't exist, right? And so, or maybe we're comparing ourselves to what we've always kind of compared ourselves to, what we see on social media, and that's somebody's curated life, right? That's not real life. Before this session started, you and I were talking about how wonderful it is that so many people are, they're showing up on video calls as themselves, right? It's before COVID, when I got on a video call, I would go put my blazer on. Now, I'm wearing the same shirt that I put on this morning to take my dog to the vet, right?
Yeah.
And I'm showing up, and I need a haircut, and all kinds of stuff. But you asked me to be on here today, so you get me as I am. And I think we have an opportunity to do so much more with that, and to show up as who we truly are, and to show up and be authentic, and have kids walking into the room and pets barking in the background, and not apologizing for that. I hear, and I catch myself doing it, and I think women tend to do it a lot, but I think men do it, other people do it. But don't apologize for who you are, or your life situation, or your work situation, or for showing up how you need to show up.
Wow.
Be confident in who you are, and don't apologize for that.
Yeah, you got a lot of likes for that, I see, and lots of people liking the dirty kitchen floor comment, leave the dirty kitchen floor.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, you just empowered a lot of us, I think, to leave
yeah.
the mess, whatever the mess is, right? Because we're all
I think we
seeing.
can start a movement on social media. We should all hashtag dirty kitchen floor.
That's right. I think that's exactly right. And Alfred made a really great comment and asked a question, can you talk just a little more about the I'm not enough as it relates to imposter syndrome? I mean, do you see imposter syndrome hurting well-being? And what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Imposter syndrome is, it's certainly something that I think all of us have had it or experienced at some point in our lives,
Yeah.
and perhaps will continue to, right? I mean, and so I think being aware of that and knowing that, but also being, you have to get comfortable and confident in who you are, and in what you bring to the world and what your message is and what your value is. And you also have to accept that, you know you you are enough, but you're not the right fit for everyone or everything, and that's okay. Because you don't have to be the right fit for everyone and everything, not and vice versa, not everybody and everything is the right fit for you, right? And so
Hmm.
I think it's going into whatever it is, new opportunities, new jobs, new friendships, new relationships, you pick it, and actually saying, instead of saying, hey, are they going to like me, or are they going to find me valuable? Why don't you turn that around and say, hey, do I like them? And do I believe that the value that I bring to them is worth my time and energy? And that's not to say you should walk in with this giant ego, because nobody likes that, right? But give yourself some credit, right? You have something to bring to the world, and you are enough. But also, I think recognizing that imposter syndrome pretty much happens to everybody. I don't know that I've ever met anybody in my entire life that hasn't had experience imposter syndrome. So knowing that's normal, but being aware that that's also what you're experiencing, and don't let it overtake you and the value that you bring.
Those are great takeaways that are really resonating in my mind. I think for a lot of us, expect it's going to happen in the future, right? It tells you you're stretching yourself. So it might be even a good thing, right? But I love
Yeah.
your comment about you have unique strengths, and that won't be everybody's cup of tea. Know that.
Right.
It's not going to fit every
Yeah.
problem, your solution. What an empowering frame. I love it. You talked about some of the challenges for women. I'm curious at an organizational level, some of the things you're doing to support women right now. Oh, Jen, I have you a bit frozen. There you are, Jen. Do you hear me?
Back.
Oh, good. We
I
just
do
had a
hear you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, see, she gave us a moment of reflection and pause, which is great for all your good advice. But in case you didn't hear it, I was asking, can you share some of the organizational level ways you're supporting women at Deloitte?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so as you know, Selena, I mean, inclusion has long been part of the culture at Deloitte, and that includes all people. And I have a personal belief that what's good for women is good for everybody.
Mhm.
And I think the work that I do in the well-being space in particular, for us at Deloitte, it actually sits in inclusion. Well-being is it's one of the pillars of our inclusive culture. And people often ask questions about that. And the reason that it does is because everybody, no matter who you are, you have a definition of what well-being means to you. Our definitions might be vast and varied and very different from one another, but we all have a definition of well-being, what matters to us, what our purpose is, what drives us. And we really want to strive to create that culture and empower people to do the things that light them up, that to do the things that how they take care of themselves, they take care of their families, doing the things that matter to them, because we know that if people are taking care of themselves and are engaging in what's important to them in life, they're going to show up at work the same way. And so you don't walk into work or your home office or wherever you're working, logging into your computer now, you don't separate those. There's not like okay, I think there used to be old thinking of like, there's Jen at home and then there's Jen at work.
Mhm.
That that was never true. It's especially not true today, and we shouldn't try to make it true. And everybody should feel empowered to do the things that matter most to them, that allow them to show up and be at their best. And so that's truly what we focus on from an organizational well-being perspective, is how do we create that culture and give people the right tools and resources and education, for them to define that in their life, but also feel really empowered to do the things that matter most to them.
That's awesome. You're getting lots of affirmation here about your comments, and it is multidimensional, isn't it? Creating a culture where you have that wellness, not just emotionally or psychologically, but when it comes to your body, even your intellect, and getting to work on what you're strong at. It's so many
Yeah.
dimensions, isn't it, that makes up well-being and feeling kind of your best.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we define it as body, mind, purpose, and financial health. And so, body is, it is your all aspects of your physical health, but it's exercise, it's movement throughout the day. It's how are you fueling your body with, the right nutritious foods. It's rest and recovery, which we don't think about very often. And it's also sleep, which is one of my favorite topics. And then mind, is really, all aspects of our mental and emotional health. And we don't often talk about, mental health is something that's so stigmatized in society, and perhaps even more so in the workplace, that so many people are just, they don't seek the treatment that they need or the help that they need. They don't ask for help because it's so stigmatized. And so really trying to break down those stigmas. But also, to your point, mind is, playing to your strengths, doing things that allow you to be creative, that stretch you. I don't like to say out of the box, but out of the box. And then purpose is really getting clear on, why do you do what you do? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Are the decisions that you're making and the things that you're saying yes and no to aligned with who you want to be and your purpose? And then financial health and well-being is pretty self-explanatory, but
Yeah.
making sure that, you're saving for rainy days and, planning for what your life goals are from a financial perspective.
That's so awesome to have your own employer reminding you of those pieces of the puzzle is huge, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think the fact that you have that model alone and are communicating it is just a huge awareness boost for people. So many people saying this starts early and young, including a point from Deirdre Joy Smith, not just waiting till we're into adulthood in the workplace and learning this for the first time, but it starts early. Lots of people love your framework. I have a question for you that I think a lot of people would be curious about, which is, you and Deloitte have been very early to the party in starting this dialogue and creating this movement and getting people to think differently about it. How do you marry up well-being, something like well-being, with such a high performance culture where there are such smart, engaged, go-getter people? How do you kind of gel those things?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question, and it's actually one that I get quite a bit, because there is this thinking that well-being and high performance are mutually exclusive, and they're absolutely not. My argument is, and I said it before, in order to sustain high performance, you have to be taking care of yourself. Otherwise it's not sustainable. And I think we also need to peel back, what we mean by well-being and self-care. And unfortunately, in some ways, I think that self-care has become, a marketing trick, right? It's self-care Sunday or wine Wednesday. It's, self-care is the place that you go when you're exhausted or burnt out. And self-care is not the place that you go when you're exhausted or burnt out. Self-care is actually, the series of small decisions that you make for yourself every single day that impact how you show up. And some of those decisions are hard and some of those decisions are easy. And it depends on what habits you already have in place. And so I think we need to redefine, or, kind of reset our mindset around what self-care actually means, because self-care is absolutely not a place that you should think about, oh, I'm going to, take a bubble bath because I've had a long week, right? A bubble bath is a great thing. And if that's part of your self-care regimen, do it, but don't do it because that's the place that you go when you're exhausted. Do it as a way to, do it in the middle of the week. Don't wait till Friday when you're exhausted,
Yeah.
and kind of rethink those things for ourselves, and rebrand what we mean by self-care, and give ourselves permission to make those choices. I mean, so much of it, I think, especially for high performers, is really about self permission. I mean, you need organizational permission, certainly, and we did hear that a lot when we were building our well-being program. But we also have to give ourselves permission, and we have to recognize that when we're taking care of ourselves, we're showing up at our best for all the things and all the people that matter to us. And we need to get rid of that thinking that self-care is somehow selfish, because it's just not. It's not true.
What a mindset shift, because I think so many of us congratulate ourselves and say, "Oh, you worked to exhaustion and then you took the bubble bath
Yeah.
and gave yourself, some
A
Oreos or
reward.
something."
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
and that loop of working to overwork till you're running on fumes
Yep.
and then trying to refill is not the way to do it. And I
Yep.
love your comment about energy. When you think about it, like
Yeah.
you only have this certain amount of energy to spend and
Right.
manage, it's not about using it to exhaustion.
Yeah. And
And
we
then,
have to, yeah, that badge of busy is not a badge that you
mm,
want to wear. And it's when I ask people, oh, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? I get the answer quite a lot. Oh, I'm crazy busy. And I always, pause when somebody says that, and I'm like, what does that actually mean? And are you okay with that? Like, is that, or is that the life you want to be living, to be crazy busy all the time, that you don't even know what's happening next hour or next day, or that you're just moving from one thing to the next, so busy that you can't even prepare and control how you show up.
crazy busy. That's like something to be underlined, and we all say it and hear it,
We all say it.
and
Yeah.
and probably don't question it enough. But maybe this great reset we're going through, we can ask ourselves, is that what we want? Somebody asked a question. We have just a few more questions for you, Jen. And it's, what's one of your favorite self care techniques, something you do in your own life?
So my top two are exercise and sleep. Those are very important to me. They're my self-care non-negotiables. As somebody who didn't used to get a lot of sleep, I put the utmost importance on sleep, even over exercise. And so I'm very diligent about making sure that I get, good quality and good quantity sleep. So that's probably my number one. One tactic that I've been using more lately than ever, just because of the pandemic and the increased levels of stress and anxiety and worry that we all have, is I create a out of my control list. And so it's my OOC list. And so I used to get up every morning and practice gratitude. Now I get up every morning and I write down all of the things that I'm worried about that are out of my control.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
I focus on the things that I can control, because that's really, really important, especially, to your mental and emotional health right now. But really, it's one of the best well-being strategies that there is. All any of us can do is focus on the things that we can control.
I love that. Wow. And it's a little counterintuitive because you almost feel
Yeah.
like you're focusing on it more by writing it down, but maybe you're freeing yourself of it
You are. That's
living up
that's the
here.
psychology. You are, by writing it down, by owning it, and putting it out there. You are actually, giving you're validating your worries, but you're also saying, hey, I can't do anything about it, so I'm going to move on, and focus on the things that I can do something about.
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge. And I'm a big fan of rituals, and I'm a shutdown ritual person. At the end of the day, I have a
Yeah,
little
those
shutdown
are
ritual.
super important.
Yeah, and that's one of them. Just not necessarily what's out of my control, but what do I need to get out of my head so I can like
Yeah,
live my life after this and
yeah, yeah.
be fully around. We talked about your own self care. Really quickly, I want to flop to the other side of it. Someone else in your life is really struggling right now, or you see them really going through hell and back with well being. Do you have any thoughts, maybe even one practice we could put to work to be there and show up for someone in our lives like that? A colleague, a loved one?
Yeah. So if it is someone that lives in your home, or that you can be close to right now, because that's certainly a challenge. But even it can be done work virtually. Ask somebody if they want to go for a walk with you. It's the most simple thing you can do. You can get them up, you can get them moving. Movement, fresh air, has such an incredible impact. And start a habit, start a routine. If you think someone's struggling, I mean, the best thing you can do is reach out and say, "Hey, I'm here for you. If you want to talk, if you need to talk." But I would say, as somebody who's been through burnout, I'm also a cancer survivor. Be direct. Ask them what they need. Say, "How can I help you? I want to be here for you. I don't know exactly what to do, but if you give me some ideas, or maybe we can talk about it together. I want to help you, and I want to be here for you." And I think, especially right now, more than ever, when so many of us can't physically be together,
Mm.
that virtual reach out, is so important and so meaningful.
That's wonderful. So the reach out, if you have somebody in your own life you're concerned about, and then the invitation for a walk, right? It's kind of that twofer, getting them out there, moving, sunshine.
Yeah, do something, do something
Yeah.
with them, whatever it is. I mean, even if it's not physical, but even start a book club with friends,
Mhm.
or hey, let's both read this book and get on the phone once a week and talk about it. There's so many things that you can do, but I think the act of physically of doing something with another person, instead of saying, "Oh, you really should do this," you say, "Hey, I'm going to do this with you." um, and that changes the entire dynamic.
How awesome. I think we can all take a note from that and think about who is that person potentially in our life that we're seeing is really struggling, and how can we all take an action on that today. One last question for you, Jen, as we kind of zoom out the lens a little bit and think, even bigger picture about your work. I know in my own life, one thing I've had to temper a lot is that striver tendency in me. Okay, I achieved this, now it's on to the next thing, and to go on and on. I had a friend say to me at some point, "Yeah, but Selena, you don't want a resume eulogy, do you? At the end of your days, like, do you want people to recite your resume? Is that kind of how you want to be remembered?" And it was so powerful. And I'm really grateful to her for kind of reminding me of what's important there. I wonder, as you think about your own work and your own legacy of what you're building here, is there an impact that's especially important to you? That's really important, you make heard or felt.
Um, well, I would say, kind of the entire umbrella of well-being. The area that I'm particularly passionate about is the topic of mental health, and really, doing everything that I can to help remove the stigma, and normalize the conversation, and create safe spaces for people to have a conversation. And I do that very openly, by sharing my own story, not only of burnout, but as someone who lives with anxiety, and what that looks like for me, and showing people that you can absolutely be accomplished, and thrive, and have, a great life, and also live with a mental illness. And so that's something that is, really, really important to me. But I think, in terms of my role, what's most impactful is honestly the unexpected stories that I get from people that either heard me speak, or read something that I wrote, or looked at a resource that we put out in Deloitte, and they send you a note, or they call you up and say, "Hey, you probably don't know this, but I want you to know that I did this, or X, Y, and Z." Was said, or I read this, and it changed everything for me. And just hearing those stories, that kind of that fuels pretty much why I do what I do, and it's really everything.
That's so beautiful, Jen. You're giving yourself permission, right, to tell your story, and you're giving people permission to bring their whole stories to work, to bring more of who they are, and then their contributions to work. So a heartfelt thanks, honestly, for everything you're doing to kind of move people to action and build that awareness and challenge norms. So inspiring to watch you. I want to encourage all of you to follow Jen. You're going to see links in the comments on Twitter, Instagram, here on LinkedIn. Check out her Work Well podcast, which is really awesome. She digs in deep with really cool experts, and your Thrive Global column, which is really fantastic on
Thank you.
breaking well-being issues. And I hope you'll stay in touch with me as well. Check out the LinkedIn learning courses that are brand new in the world that'll help fire up your motivation, your confidence to get things in order, including your well-being. Join the newsletter tribe. You'll see an opportunity to sign up for that, and follow me here on LinkedIn. I want to thank all of you. Thank you, Jen. I hope you all stay
Thank you.
healthy and well and lead on. Thanks so much.
Bye.